The Maddox Ranch woke slowly, like it always did, under a sky still painted with the pale lavender of early dawn. Cattle moved lazily across the pasture, horses nickered in their stalls, and the faint smell of dew clung to the wooden fences. For rancher Cole Maddox, this early hour was sacred. It was the one moment of the day when everything felt steady and predictable. He fed the horses, checked the water troughs, and listened to the rustling prairie grass, trying to clear his mind before the workday took over. He was tightening the saddle on his bay stallion when he heard footsteps, soft ones, hesitant, almost too light for the rough ground they crossed. They weren't the footsteps of his ranch hands. These steps belonged to someone who didn't want to disturb anything or anyone. He turned, and there she stood. Lena Carter, the woman who had arrived on his ranch months ago with nothing but a small bag and 2 frightened daughters, hovered near the barn door. She wasn't dressed to ride, nor to work. She wore the simple faded dress she kept for important things, though it was worn at the sleeves and frayed near the hem. Her daughters, Anna and May, clung close to her, one holding her mother's hand, the other gripping her skirt. Cole instantly sensed something was off. Lena never approached him this early, and she certainly never came with both girls unless it was urgent. She was a quiet woman, always trying to blend into the ranch routine without creating a ripple. Seeing her standing there, clearly trying to gather courage for something, made him straighten with concern. He wiped the dust off his palms and approached slowly, not wanting to spook her or the girls. "Morning, Lena," he said softly. "Everything all right?" Her eyes lifted to his soft eyes, but always shadowed by old fears. She swallowed and offered a small, nervous smile that didn't hide the tremble in her voice. "Cole," she began, I wanted to ask you something." That alone made his chest tighten. Lena rarely asked for anything, not help, not favors, not even comfort when she clearly needed it. She always kept her distance, as if convinced she was a burden. Anna pressed closer to her mother's side. May peeked at Cole with wide eyes. Both girls were unusually alert, like small animals who had learned to stay ready for danger. Lena took a slow breath. "Can you take us to town today?" The words were simple, but the weight behind them was enormous. Cole didn't respond immediately. Instead, he studied her closely. The way her hands twisted together. The way her shoulders were curved forward, as if bracing for refusal. The slight redness around her eyes, hinting she might have cried earlier. And the quiet terror hiding behind her attempt at calm. Lena hated going to town. He knew that much. The noise, the gossiping eyes, the memories, it all left her shaken for days. So for her to ask now meant she had no choice. "Town?" He repeated softly. "Today?" She nodded quickly. I need to get the girls' new boots and some school papers filed. I've been putting it off, and I shouldn't anymore." Her voice cracked on the last words. Cole looked at the girl's shoes worn thin, splitting at the toes. He saw the truth in that single glance. She wasn't lying. She was trying to take care of her children the best way she could. He let out a slow breath. "I'll take you," he said, voice steady. Then, more quietly, "Only if you promise to come back home." Lena froze. Not at the agreement, but at the word home. It hung between them, heavier than the morning air, fuller than she expected. Her eyes softened, filling with something fragile. "I promise," she whispered. And in that moment, something unspoken shifted, something that would change everything that followed. The request had been made. Lena had promised to return. But the moment Cole stepped away to prepare the wagon, the weight of her promise seemed to settle on her shoulders like a physical burden. Lena stood near the barn door with her daughters, watching Cole work. He moved with the calm confidence of a man who understood land, horses, and storms. She, meanwhile, felt like a storm was building inside her chest. Her fingers trembled as she brushed dust off Anna's hair. The little girl didn't miss much, and she caught her mother's hand mid-air. "Mama," Anna whispered, "are we really going?" Lena forced a smile. Yes, sweetheart. We need to. But, town? May asked, her voice barely a whisper, as if the word itself was dangerous. Lena knelt and pulled both girls close, hugging them tightly. Nothing will happen. Cole is taking us. She tried to believe her own words. Tried to hold on to the small comfort that the ranch, the place that had sheltered them for months, had created a safety they had never known before. But stepping beyond its fences felt like stepping out of a fortress. Cole led the horses out of the stable, attaching them to the wagon with practiced movements. He kept glancing at Lena when he thought she wasn't looking. He saw more than she wished he did, saw the strain around her eyes, the stiffness in her posture, the way she held her breath each time someone walked by or a door slammed shut. He had seen that same look before. Months ago, when she had first arrived at his ranch, clutching her daughters and a canvas bag like her life depended on it. He had accepted her without asking too many questions, but some answers were visible without words: fear, exhaustion, pain buried deep. And now that same fear flickered in her eyes again. When Cole approached with the wagon, Lena straightened immediately, as if caught doing something wrong. You okay? He asked quietly. Yes, she answered too quickly. Fine. Just thinking. Thinking, he repeated with a small nod. He didn't push further, but his eyes softened with understanding. We'll take it slow. The girls climbed into the wagon, but not without hesitation. They kept glancing at Lena, as if waiting for her to change her mind. Lena helped them settle in, smoothing their hair, adjusting their dresses, small motions meant to distract from the fear trembling beneath her skin. As she stepped toward the wagon herself, her feet felt heavy, like they were protesting each step. The ranch behind her suddenly felt too far away, though she had only taken a few steps. Her heart thudded with the sharp ache of uncertainty. Cole held out his hand to help her up. She hesitated just a second, but he noticed. His hand didn't waver. You sure you're ready? He asked. Lena swallowed. We have to go. The girls need their papers. And boots. He studied her a moment longer. Then we go. She took his hand. It was warm, steady, solid, a grounding presence in the swirl of panic rising in her chest. Once she was seated, Cole climbed up beside her and took the reins. The horses snorted and shifted, sensing the tension. As the wagon rolled forward, Lena's hands gripped the bench until her knuckles turned white. She kept glancing behind them, watching the ranch shrink slowly. Her breath hitched. Cole noticed but pretended not to, giving her space while silently preparing himself for whatever lay ahead in town. Trouble, he suspected, wasn't far. Lena knew it too. And yet, she sat there because she wanted more for her daughters than fear and hiding. She wanted them to live. Cole flicked the reins gently, and the wagon moved down the dusty path. Part 2 ended not with danger, but with a woman forcing herself to face the world again, and a man silently vowing to protect her from whatever waited in it. The wagon creaked as it rolled down the long dirt road leading away from the Maddox Ranch. Morning sunlight painted the plains gold, stretching across miles of open land. To anyone else, the road to town was just another stretch of dust and sky, but to Lena and her daughters, it felt like a tightrope above a canyon. Cole kept the horses at a steady pace, not too fast, not too slow. He knew the girls were nervous. He noticed how Anna clutched the edge of the seat so hard her knuckles turned pale. May sat close to her mother, her small face half hidden behind Lena's arm. Every time the wagon hit a bump, both girls nearly jumped. Lena didn't flinch at the bumps. Her fears lived deeper than jolts in the road. Cole saw the way she scanned the horizon, eyes darting to every movement. A rider in the distance. A cloud of dust. Even a stray tumbleweed shifting in the wind made her shoulders tense. She was trying to be brave for her daughters, but the effort weighed on her. Cole, sitting beside her, felt the struggle like a quiet pulse in the air. You girls excited for town? He asked gently, breaking the tension. Anna's voice was barely a whisper. A little, May shook her head. It's loud there, Cole smiled softly. That it is, but I know all the quiet corners. I'll show you. May peeked up at him, and for a moment the fear in her eyes softened. Lena looked at Cole with a small, grateful glance. She knew what he was doing, distracting the girls, giving them something safer to think about than the memories town brought back. Memories of shouting, cruel hands, doors slammed, and nights filled with fear. The wind swept her hair across her face, and she tucked it behind her ear, hoping Cole hadn't seen her flinch at the sound of a distant wagon. He had. He just didn't say anything. To ease the atmosphere even more, he pointed toward the sky. See that bird? He asked, nodding at a hawk circling above them. That one comes around most mornings. Likes to ride the wind currents. Anna's eyes lifted. He's big, she breathed. Strong too, Cole added. But he doesn't make a sound unless he needs to. Smart that way. The girls followed the bird until it faded into the horizon. The silence afterward felt lighter, no longer suffocating. Lena exhaled slowly. Cole didn't miss the small marks on her wrist as the sleeve of her dress slipped back, the faint, fading bruises shaped like fingers. They weren't new, but they weren't old enough either. Anger simmered under Cole's calm exterior, but he kept his jaw relaxed. The last thing Lena needed was to think she had upset him. After a few miles, Lena finally spoke. I'm sorry if this puts trouble on you, she said softly, eyes fixed on her lap. Cole turned his head slightly toward her. Lena, he said gently, taking you and the girls to town isn't trouble. I know people talk. They talk no matter what, he said simply. The directness of his answer surprised her. She met his eyes briefly. There was no pity in them, only steadiness. And that steadiness soothed something deep inside her. The wagon rolled through fields dotted with sagebrush, the distant sound of a river humming under the wind. The girls began whispering quietly to each other, curiosity replacing fear little by little. The tension in the wagon eased enough that May even giggled when a jackrabbit darted across the path. Cole smiled at the sound. It was the first laugh he'd heard from her in days. By the time the dusty outline of the town began to form on the horizon, the girls had relaxed a little, and Lena was sitting straighter, still scared, still uncertain, but braver than she felt. She didn't know yet what awaited her in town. Cole did, or at least he suspected, and as they approached the first wooden buildings, he tightened his grip slightly on the reins, preparing himself for whatever trouble might rise from the past she was trying so hard to outrun. By the time the wagon reached the outskirts of town, Lena's hands had gone cold despite the warm sun. She pulled her daughters close, as if keeping them pressed against her could shield them from every memory, every stare, every danger that lurked past the ranch fences. The familiar wooden buildings rose before them, the schoolhouse, the mercantile, the sheriff's office, the saloon with its swinging doors, and each one made her breath shorten. To Cole, the town was simply another part of life, noisy and imperfect but manageable. To Lena, it was a place filled with ghosts of her past life, ghosts of the people who had judged her, ghosts of the man she had once called husband. The moment the wagon wheels hit the main street, heads turned. Whispers began like dust swirling behind them, soft at first, then clearer as more people recognized her. That's her Lena Carter. Didn't she leave for good? Heard her husband died, but problems followed her. Poor thing. Poor kids. Or maybe she's just trouble. Never know with women who run. Lena heard every word even though people tried to murmur quietly. Her shoulders stiffened. Her eyes dropped to her lap. She kept one hand on each of her daughters, holding on as if they might slip away. Cole saw it all. He watched the way she shrank in on herself, the way her breath went shallow, the way she tried not to let the girls notice. The muscles in his jaw tightened. He wasn't a man who sought fights, but seeing the judgment on people's faces lit a quiet fire in him. He guided the wagon down the center of the street, posture straight, expression firm, making it clear that Lena and the girls were under his protection. When he stopped in front of the mercantile, he turned slightly toward her. "You ready?" he asked gently. Lena nodded, but it was a fragile nod, the kind that broke on the inside. Anna clutched her mother's sleeve. "Mama, people are staring." Lena forced a soft smile, brushing Anna's cheek. "It's all right, sweetheart. Just stay close." Cole stepped down first, then offered his hand to help them. Lena hesitated only a moment before taking it. His hand was warm, steady, reminding her of safety even in the midst of so many eyes. As they walked toward the mercantile, whispers followed like shadows. A couple of older women paused on the boardwalk, their eyes sliding over Lena with a mix of pity and suspicion. A ranch hand across the street spat into the dirt and muttered something under his breath. A man exiting the saloon paused mid-step, eyes narrowing in curiosity. Every glance felt like a small cut. Lena held her chin up, though inside she felt as though she were wilting. The girls stayed glued to her sides, clinging to her skirts as if she were their last anchor. Cole walked just slightly ahead, not blocking her view but clearing a path shoulders square, gaze forward, silently telling anyone watching to think twice. When they reached the mercantile door, Cole opened it and stepped aside. "You go on," he said quietly. "I'm right here." The inside of the store wasn't any easier. The bell above the door chimed, and the owner, Mr. Ralston, looked up from behind the counter. His eyes flickered with recognition and something sharper, something judgmental. Lena felt her stomach tighten. She remembered the last time she had come alone. He had spoken to her like she was an inconvenience, a burden, someone undeserving of kindness. His smile now was thin. "Well, didn't expect to see you back." Lena lowered her gaze. "Just here for a few things." He said, eyes drifting to her girls. "Right." Cole stepped forward then, not aggressively, but close enough that Ralston's expression shifted. "She's here to shop," Cole said. "Same as anyone." Ralston swallowed and looked away. Lena felt something strange in that moment, relief mixed with gratitude, mixed with something she couldn't name. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel like she was walking through town alone. The mercantile smelled of flour, leather, and dust-familiar scents that should have been comforting, but for Lena, they only tightened the knot in her stomach. Every footstep on the wooden floor seemed too loud, every voice too sharp. She kept her daughters close, one hand resting protectively on Anna's shoulder, the other clasping May's small fingers. Cole stayed only a step behind her, his presence a quiet shield. Mr. Ralston, the shop owner, stood stiffly behind the counter, arms crossed. He was a wiry man with a sharp nose and sharper eyes that flickered with judgment the moment Lena walked in. He had never treated her kindly. Her late husband's reputation had tainted her in the town's eyes, and Ralston was one of those who acted as if Lena carried the man's sins like a stain on her skin. "What are you needing today?" he asked, pretending politeness but lacing the words with a cold edge. Lena swallowed and lifted her chin slightly. "Boots for the girls." "And a few supplies." He snorted softly. "Well, boots aren't cheap." Lena opened her mouth but paused. She knew exactly what he meant. Last time she'd come, he had overcharged her, claiming prices had risen. She hadn't argued then, she'd paid what she could, then left shaking. But she wasn't alone this time. She glanced briefly at Cole, who offered only a quiet nod, telling her to continue. Lena picked up a pair of small leather boots for May. "How much for these?" $6, Ralston said immediately. Cole blinked. Lena tensed. That was nearly double the usual price. She hesitated, voice small. Last time they were. Prices change, Ralston snapped, his tone implying she shouldn't be questioning him. Cole stepped forward, slow and controlled. "Funny," he said calmly. "I bought a pair last week for $3.50. Ralston stiffened. "Well?" "That was a different shipment." Cole raised an eyebrow. "Same model, same make, same stitching." The shop fell quiet. Lena felt Anna and May press against her legs. Other customers glanced over, sensing tension. Ralston cleared his throat. "Maybe I misremembered. Let me help," Cole said, reaching for the price ledger sitting on the counter. Ralston's hand shot out to block him. "Ain't necessary." "It is," Cole said, voice even. "If we're paying, we'll pay the right amount." Ralston hesitated, then reluctantly pulled the ledger toward him, flipping through pages with stiff fingers. He found the entry, $3.50. Exactly as Cole said. His jaw clenched. "Fine, $3.50. Lena stood frozen. She felt heat rise behind her eyes, not humiliation this time, but something closer to gratitude and shock. She wasn't used to anyone defending her. Not in a store, not in public, not anywhere. Cole didn't gloat, didn't puff up his chest. He just moved beside her gently. "Go on, pick what you need," he murmured. "Don't worry about him." She nodded numbly and continued selecting boots, flour, matches, and small necessities the girls needed for school. With each item she picked up, Ralston rang it loudly, huffing between each total as if daring Cole to challenge him again. He didn't need to, because Ralston knew Cole Maddox wasn't the kind of man you argued with twice in one morning. When they finished, Lena dug into her small bag of coins, counting carefully. Her hand shook slightly. Before she could finish, Cole reached into his pocket. "I've got it," he said simply. Lena spun toward him. "No, Cole, I can't. It's supplies for the girls," he said quietly, but firmly. "Let me." Her lips parted, emotions whirring across her face: pride, fear, gratitude, disbelief. But she saw no pity in Cole's eyes, only sincerity. She nodded slowly. When they stepped out of the mercantile, the sun felt brighter, the air less heavy. For the first time that day, Lena felt like she wasn't walking through town alone, but trouble was far from over. Someone dangerous was about to step into their path. Lena felt a brief surge of relief as she stepped out of the mercantile. The sun warmed her back, and for a moment, the whispers of the town seemed distant. The girls clutched her hands, smiling nervously as if sensing a momentary pause in the tension. Cole stayed close, guiding them toward the wagon, his presence a steadying anchor in the storm of her nerves. Then, out of nowhere, the shadow appeared. A man emerged from the street corner with a deliberate stride, eyes fixed on Lena. His broad shoulders and familiar gait made her stomach drop. The familiar bitterness in his eyes sent a chill down her spine. Her breath caught in her throat as recognition hit. It was her late husband's brother, someone who had tormented her long before her husband died and continued to haunt her through threats and rumors. "Lena Carter," he called, his voice carrying across the street, sharp and menacing. "I see you've been running from your debts. Time to pay up, and don't think you can hide your kids from me." Anna and May froze, clutching her skirts. May's small face crumpled as a tear slid down her cheek, while Anna's eyes widened with a mix of fear and confusion. Lena's knees went weak. The world seemed to tilt. She tried to step back to shield her daughters, but she was rooted in place. Cole noticed instantly. His jaw tightened, eyes narrowing as he stepped in front of Lena, placing himself between her and the man. His hands rested casually on the reins, but his posture was a silent warning. Cross this line, and there would be consequences. "Step back," Cole said evenly, voice low but carrying an unmistakable edge. "You don't touch them." The man smirked, trying to mask the surprise that someone would dare confront him. "Or what?" He spat. "You're just one man." "That woman owes me." Cole's glare cut him off. "1 man or 10, you won't lay a finger on them. Not today." Not ever. Lena's heart raced. Her body felt heavy with relief and terror at the same time. She had run so far, fought so hard to create a safe life for her daughters, and now the past had tracked her down in the most public way imaginable. The other townspeople were staring, some whispering, some frozen mid-step, sensing danger but unsure how far it would go. The man took a cautious step closer, flexing his fingers, but Cole didn't move. His presence alone was a wall, unyielding. Lena realized the fight wasn't hers to fight alone, and in that moment, a strange mix of fear and trust surged through her. She didn't have to face him. She didn't have to hide anymore. "Back off," Cole said again, sharper this time. "Or I'll make sure the law hears about your actions, and I want to let them forget." For a heartbeat, the man weighed his options. He looked at Lena, then at the determined set of Cole's jaw, the unwavering stance, the tension in his hands. He saw the loyalty, the strength, and the willingness to act if necessary. And then, slowly, reluctantly, he stepped back. Lena's knees trembled, and she gripped Cole's arm, her daughters pressing close. The danger hadn't disappeared entirely. She knew he might return, but for now, they were safe. Cole motioned toward the wagon. "We're going. Stay close, stay quiet. Don't look back." Lena nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "Thank you. For everything." Cole didn't answer, only tightened his grip on the reins. As the horses began to move, Lena held her daughters close. The past had tried to catch them today, but for the first time she realized she wasn't powerless. Not while Cole was near, not while she had a place to return to, a home that could protect her and her children. The town blurred around them as the wagon rattled down the street. Lena's chest still heaved, but a flicker of something new warmed her hope. For the first time in years, she felt the faintest taste of safety. And she knew the journey back home was more than just a ride, it was a promise. The wagon jolted over the rough street as Cole guided the horses quickly out of the town square. Lena held her daughters close, their small hands gripping hers like lifelines. Her heart raced, still trembling from the sudden confrontation with her late husband's brother. Anna and May had stopped crying, but their wide eyes darted between Lena and Cole, taking in every shadow and every whisper. The danger had not vanished entirely. It lingered in the air like smoke, but Cole's presence offered a barrier she had never known she could rely on. Cole's hands were steady on the reins, his jaw set in quiet determination. He didn't speak immediately, letting the wagon's rhythmic creaking and the pounding hooves drown out the whispers of the town behind them. The dust rose in clouds as the wagon gained speed, coating the girls' hair and clothes. Lena's stomach twisted as the familiar sights of the town faded behind the rising hills. Relief mixed with lingering terror. Town had always been a battleground for her, a place of whispers, judgment, and threats, and now it had nearly consumed them. She tightened her grip on her daughters. "It's okay," she whispered, more to herself than to them. "We're safe now." Anna leaned into her shoulder. "Mama, I don't want to go back there." "You won't have to," Lena promised softly, though she knew the truth. They would return only because they needed supplies and papers, but the memory of today's encounter would linger. Cole glanced over, sensing her tension. "We'll get home," he said simply. "No one's going to hurt you there," Lena exhaled slowly, trying to draw the words into her chest instead of letting them escape in shaky gasps. The sun beat down on them, but the prairie felt calmer than the town. The distant mountains stretched before them, indifferent and protective. For the first time that day, Lena allowed herself a fleeting sense of safety. The girls began to relax, Anna pointing out shapes in the clouds and May giggling quietly at a rabbit darting through the tall grass. Lena smiled faintly, amazed at how quickly life's small joys could return once danger receded. She realized that even the simplest moments, laughing with her daughters, feeling the wagon sway under the horses, the warm wind brushing her face, were treasures she had nearly forgotten existed. Cole kept a steady pace, careful not to rush, yet unwilling to give the town any chance to catch up with them. He had no intention of letting the man from the mercantile, or worse, her brother-in-law, intercept them again. He had already made a quiet promise to himself. No one would harm Lena or her girls under his watch. For Lena, the ride was a mixture of exhaustion and revelation. Her muscles ached from holding tension too long. Her mind reeled with the memory of confrontation, but with every mile she felt a fraction lighter. She realized how deeply she had feared losing the sanctuary of the ranch, how much she had relied on its quiet protection, and how profoundly she depended on Cole's steady presence. By the time the prairie opened fully before them, the shadows lengthened and the sun began its descent. The hills cast long fingers across the trail, and the sky glowed with muted amber and rose. Lena allowed herself to lean back slightly, letting the rhythm of the wagon and the horse's stride soothe her frayed nerves. She whispered softly to herself, almost like a prayer, "We're going home." "We'll be safe soon." Cole glanced at her and then at the girls, his eyes reflecting both resolve and quiet relief. No words were necessary. They had survived the danger, and the wagon carried them toward the place they belonged. Back to the ranch. Back to safety. Back to a home that offered protection and peace. As the town disappeared completely from view, Lena realized something profound. The past could follow her anywhere, but she didn't have to face it alone. Not anymore. The wagon rolled steadily down the dusty prairie trail, the rhythmic creaking and the soft snorts of the horses filling the otherwise quiet afternoon. The dust settled lightly on Lena's lap, coating her hands and her daughter's clothes. The air was warmer now, carrying the faint scent of sagebrush and dry earth, but her heart was still pounding. Every mile back from town had been a mixture of relief and lingering fear. The past had nearly reached out and claimed them, and the memory of her brother-in-law's accusing glare and threatening words refused to leave her mind. Anna and May had grown quieter after the confrontation, but their little hands stayed firmly in hers, fingers intertwined with hers like anchors. Lena looked down at them, her chest tight, and realized she had been holding her own breath for hours, waiting, fearing, bracing herself for whatever might come next. Cole sat beside her on the wagon bench, reins in hand, eyes forward. He didn't speak, but his presence was a quiet, unyielding support. Lena had grown used to his steady nature over the past months on the ranch. But now, in the aftermath of danger, it felt like a lifeline she could cling to. Finally, the dam of her fear broke. She turned slightly, glancing at Cole, her voice trembling as she spoke. I didn't want to go to town," she admitted, barely above a whisper. "But the girls, they need new shoes and papers for school. I couldn't put it off anymore." Cole didn't interrupt. He simply nodded, his grip on the reins steady, letting her voice find its way out. She exhaled sharply, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. "I'm scared. Every time I step into a place like that, I feel like the world is waiting to take something from me. My safety, my daughters, maybe even me. I've been running so long. I don't know if I can stop." Her daughters shifted beside her, sensing the weight of their mother's words. May whimpered softly, and Anna squeezed Lena's hand, leaning into her. Lena felt tears prick her eyes. She had been so careful, so strong for so long, but here, on the trail with the prairie stretching before them and Cole beside her, she allowed herself to feel the depth of her fear. Cole's voice was low, firm, and steady. "You're not alone, Lena. You haven't been alone since the day you stepped onto this ranch. No one will harm your daughters, not while I'm here. Not while you're here. You don't have to fight this alone anymore." Her shoulders sagged under the weight of relief mingled with exhaustion. The words, simple though they were, reached deep inside her. She realized that safety wasn't just a place. It was also the people who stood beside her, who wouldn't let her fall. And for the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe it was possible to stop running, even if just for a little while. I've always been afraid, she admitted, voice breaking slightly. Afraid of being taken away from the girls. Afraid of the past catching up with us. Afraid that even here, somewhere I thought we were safe, we might never truly be. Cole reached over, resting a hand briefly on hers, not touching, but close enough to offer reassurance. We'll face the past if it comes, he said quietly. But for now, we ride home. And when we get there, you'll see you're safe. You can breathe again. Lena closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face, the steady motion of the wagon beneath her, and the quiet strength of the man beside her. For the first time that day, she let herself hope. Hope that the ranch could be more than a temporary refuge, that the girls could grow without fear, and that she could find peace after years of running. The prairie stretched endlessly ahead, golden and forgiving. And as the wagon rolled steadily toward home, Lena allowed herself a fragile smile, the weight of unspoken fears lifting just enough to let her breathe. She realized that the journey wasn't just about leaving town, it was about beginning to trust again. The wagon moved steadily over the rolling prairie, the sun beginning its descent toward the horizon. Golden light spilled across the fields, brushing the tips of tall grass with warmth. The air was cooler now, carrying the faint scent of sage and wildflowers, and the world felt quieter than it had all day. Lena sat on the wagon bench, her daughters tucked close to her sides, their small fingers entwined with hers, and she felt an unfamiliar mixture of exhaustion and clarity. The past, with all its judgment, whispers and threats, had been left behind, or at least temporarily. The confrontation in town had rattled her, but it had also crystallized something she had been avoiding for months. She couldn't keep running forever. She wanted safety for herself and her daughters, but more than that, she wanted to believe that there was a place where they belonged, a place they could truly call home. Cole had been silent for most of the ride. His eyes were forward, scanning the trail ahead, but she knew he was watching her too. He had become a constant presence, a protector without fanfare, steady and unshakable. And now, somewhere between the distance from town and the approaching ranch, Lena realized she was ready to let herself lean on that steadiness. Finally, Cole slowed the horses to a walk, the wheels of the wagon crunching softly on the dirt trail. He glanced at Lena, his expression softening in a way that made her heart tighten. He didn't reach for her hand or speak immediately, he simply let the moment linger, allowing the weight of the day and the journey to settle between them. Then he spoke quietly, deliberately. Lena, will you come back home? The question hung in the air, simple in words but profound in meaning. It wasn't just about returning to the physical safety of the ranch. It was about trust, about surrendering the fear that had dictated her life for so long, about choosing to believe in someone who had consistently stood by her. It was a question that asked if she was willing to stop running, not just from town or from her past, but from herself and her own need for protection, for stability, for love. Lena's throat tightened. She felt a rush of emotions, fear, hope, relief, and vulnerability mixing into a lump she could barely swallow. Her daughters, sensing the seriousness of the moment, looked up at her with wide, trusting eyes. She realized they too were waiting for her decision, for her promise that they could belong somewhere safe. She took a slow breath, glancing down at their small hands in hers, then up at Cole's unwavering gaze. The sunlight painted him in warm gold, highlighting the steady lines of his face, the quiet strength in his posture. For the first time, she felt certain that she didn't need to be brave alone. I promise, she whispered, voice trembling but firm. Cole's lips curved in the faintest hint of a smile. He didn't press for more, didn't demand elaborate words. Her promise was enough. Enough to mark a turning point. Enough to signal that she had chosen to let herself stay, to trust, to accept that home could be more than a place. It could be a sanctuary, a bond, a promise kept. The girls squealed softly, pressing against her as relief and joy washed over them. Lena felt the tension in her shoulders finally loosen. The weight of fear, of vigilance, of running, began to lift, replaced by the fragile, tentative peace of someone who had chosen to believe in safety again. Cole tightened his hold on the reins and nudged the horses forward. The trail ahead stretched toward the ranch, golden in the sunset. The promise had been made, the trust established, and for the first time in years, Lena felt a flicker of hope that they had truly come home. The prairie seemed endless, forgiving, and full of possibility. And as the wagon carried them forward, Lena realized that home wasn't just a place, it was the choice to stay, the courage to trust, and the willingness to finally let someone stand beside her without fear. The Maddox Ranch appeared on the horizon as the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. The familiar outline of the wooden fences, the barn, and the porch seemed to glow in the evening light, welcoming them home. Lena's chest tightened with a mix of relief, exhaustion, and an unfamiliar warmth. For months, this ranch had been their refuge, a quiet place to rest and breathe, but now it felt different. It felt like home in the truest sense, a place they belonged, not just a shelter from danger. The wagon rattled over the last stretch of dirt, and the girls sat up straighter, faces bright with anticipation. Anna pointed to the barn, while May clutched Lena's hand, eyes wide with excitement. Their laughter, light and bubbling, rose above the soft crunch of the wagon wheels, bringing a smile to Lena's face despite the long day behind them. Cole guided the horses to a slow stop near the porch. He jumped down first and held out his hand, steady and firm, offering reassurance without needing to speak. Lena helped her daughters down, one by one, and finally stepped down herself. The earth felt solid beneath her boots, grounding her in the moment. For the first time in days, she could exhale fully, letting the tension seep out with each breath. The girls ran ahead, rushing to the familiar safety of the porch and the warmth of the ranch. They were home, truly home, and Lena followed them slowly, savoring each step. She glanced at Cole, whose gaze never left her. There was no rush in his movements, only quiet certainty. In that moment, Lena realized the depth of the promise they had made together. She would return, she would stay, and they would no longer be haunted by fear alone. She stopped at the edge of the porch and turned to Cole. His expression was calm, steady, and patient, the kind of patience that didn't judge weakness, that welcomed vulnerability. Lena's eyes softened, a mixture of gratitude and unspoken affection flowing between them. "We're home," she said quietly, almost to herself. Cole nodded, his hand brushing against hers in a fleeting, gentle gesture. "You promised," he said, voice low and steady. "And you're here." Her lips curved into a small, genuine smile. The weight of the past, the town, the threats, the whispers felt distant now. The ranch had become more than a refuge. It was a sanctuary. And more than that, Cole's unwavering presence had shown her that home wasn't to just the land or the fences. It was where trust, safety, and care existed together. The girls climbed onto the porch rail, chattering about the day, about the boots, and about the little things they had seen in town. Lena joined them, letting the stories wash over her like a balm. Each word, each laugh, each small joy reminded her that she had chosen not just to survive, but to embrace the possibility of peace. Cole walked around to the wagon, bringing the supplies inside and helping organize the small purchases for the girls' school. His quiet efficiency was comforting, a reminder that the world could be navigated with strength and care. Lena watched him, the steady rhythm of his movements reinforcing her sense of security. That evening, as the sun sank completely and the sky deepened to a deep indigo, Lena sat on the porch with her daughters at her side. Cole joined them, and for the first time, there was no urgency, no fear pressing on her chest. Only the soft sounds of the prairie, the wind, the distant lowing of cattle, the occasional hoot of an owl filled the space. Lena realized something profound. They had come home not just in body, but in spirit. The ranch had always been a place of safety, but now it was a place of belonging, of hope, and of future possibilities. And with Cole beside her, steady and unwavering, she knew they could face anything together. The prairies stretched endlessly before them, golden and forgiving, as if celebrating their return. Lena held her daughters close and breathed deeply, feeling a sense of peace she had thought impossible. She whispered softly, almost in awe, "We're finally home." Cole squeezed her shoulder gently, silent, understanding. And together they watched the last light fade over the Maddox Ranch, their home, their sanctuary, and the beginning of a new chapter.